All right. Well, I am thrilled to be here with all of you today, as well as a panel of our industry pros in the QSR space. We've got an incredible lineup, and we'll be talking all things QSR, what's working, what's changing, and what's coming next for our operators across the industry. With that, I'm excited to hand things over to our solutions architect, Mark Cohen, who will introduce our panelists and get the conversation started. Mark, the floor is all yours.
Thanks, Denise, and welcome everybody. Good afternoon, wherever you're dialing in from across the country. We have got a powerhouse panel today. And for those of you that don't know me, my name is Mark Cohen. I'm a solutions architect at Restaurant 365. I've been with the company now coming up on 8 years, and I'm very familiar with all three of our guests today. With that, let's bring them into the room. Joining us today are Bill Valentis, Kristen Sandhurst, and Wayne Humphrey. I'm going to let them say a little bit about themselves. Bill, let's start with you. Tell the people who you are.
Thanks, Mark. Hi, I'm Bill Valentis. I'm the CFO of Freddy's. I've been with Freddy's for about 10 years now. I've been using Restaurant 365 for 9 of those. And we are a fast casual concept that serves burgers and fries and custard. And we have 580 locations as of today.
And Kristen, tell everybody who you are.
Yeah, hi, I'm Kristen Sandhurst. I'm the CFO of a group of companies on the franchisee side. So we have 3 Slim Chickens and 20 QSR Mexican restaurants called Taco John's in the upper Midwest. Earlier this year, we decided to diversify and actually started an accounting firm, Adato Accounting Services, catering to restaurant owners and developers, as well as we offer digital tools for restaurant owners through a little website called Restaurant Toolbox.
And Wayne, tell everybody about you and Snarfs.
Hey guys, yeah, it's the funniest name for a sandwich shop ever. We serve the very best toasted, tasty sandwiches in the country. I've been with the company for 6 years. We will be at our 30-year anniversary in a couple of months here next year. Very excited about it. We have 45 company operations spread through here in Colorado and Austin, and we're just about to open the Dallas market this coming month. And we also have 7 licensed locations in St. Louis and airports.
Awesome. Well, thank
And
all
oh,
three
by
of
the
you.
way, we're
Oh, yes.
dyed-in-the-wool fans of R365. Couldn't live without it.
Appreciate the shout out, Wayne. And Bill, I forget you predate, you're 9 years in on your R365 journey. I'm only 8. So just talking about what we're going to look at today, today's agenda, we're going to talk a little about the state of the industry, current industry trends, operational efficiencies, cost controls, multi-location management, people, culture, and training, which is sort of top of mind, I feel like, these days. We take care of our people, we take care of our guests. That guest experience, future growth, and we'll wrap up with some hot takes and some rapid fire. So let's take a look at the state of the industry right now. The industry is going to reach $1.5 trillion in sales this year, which is remarkable. So the industry is definitely back to thriving. I think we're also employing 15.9 million people towards the end of the year. I think after the government, hospitality is king in terms of employment, which is monumental. Our industry is very strong. As far as the QSR market goes, the U.S. sector is valued at about, 447 billion in 2000. It's on track to reach 731 billion by 2030. So this is a very hot space for a lot of our restaurant groups and a lot of our operators. That global market is really expanding rapidly, as we've seen in the news, looking to hit 2 trillion by 2032. Which is just a massive number. And then, operational pressures we're going to talk a lot about today, but labor and food continue to be the ones that are squeezing our margins. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody on the call today, but we're going to dig into how these three are sort of attacking those and controlling those. So let's start with operational efficiencies. And Bill, I'm going to start with you. What are sort of the biggest operational challenges that you and Freddy's are facing right now, sort of across all of your stores?
Well, I think when guests, Freddy's is not a discounting brand. We like to give value in our service. And so, making sure that we're hyper focused on what hospitality looks like at our restaurants is always challenging. But I think when it gets these times, it's a little bit more challenging because you have to go above and beyond. And we always try to go above and beyond, but I think, it's staying focused on that all the time. You get a little tired sometimes of our teams working through that, always staying on top. And so it's always important for our teams to keep reminding each other that helping each other get by. I was in a drive-through of a quick service restaurant the other night, and I actually saw that happening. Not one of our concepts, but one of our competitors, and it was good to see that teammates were helping each other out. So that's what it takes across the industry of, making sure that we're providing exceptional hospitality, if that's part of your value creation for your guest.
And Wayne, what about for Snarfs? What are sort of your big operational challenges right now?
The some of the operational challenges really are the biggest opportunities as well, as they oftentimes are. And it's
Yep.
all about people. It's retaining the talent that we have. We focus a considerable amount of our attention there. It's just keeping it fun, recognizing people, making sure that Snarfs is a job that they just don't want to leave. And then the better we are at that, it just blossoms into increased sales because you're building relationships with your customers. It helps manage your costs because the better your tenure, the better your productivity. And when you get to the point to where it's clear and obvious to our customers that people are hustling and they're working hard, but they're having fun. They smile, they're kidding around with each other, and the pride that they take in their product and the fact that they're on a winning team, that they're doing better than other people shows. And I think that builds that relationship between the team, management, and with our customers as well. Beyond that, it's just the uncertainty that we all face, with inflation and rents and things of that nature. Just other relying on other companies that are understaffed sometimes is difficult from an operational perspective as well.
Right. It's a fine line, right? So how do you balance cutting costs while sort of maintaining speed and guest satisfaction, right? Do you have any tools or strategies that have sort of helped you stay ahead of that?
Yeah, we do, and like everybody on this call and most people, we're not going to decrease quality. We're not going to decrease the amount, the size. We pride ourselves on our sandwiches being a full meal, and much like Bill said at Freddy's, we're not a discount brand. We very rarely have any type of a discount. We don't want to erode the inherent value of the menu, so we concentrate on making sure. I think people may have heard this before, but aces in their places. Focus on proper staffing at lunch, that we're not wasting hours opening in the morning, midday, or evening. We really want to focus on that productivity to have our labor looked at as an investment, is there for that guest experience. And again, we just focus on making sure that the guest experience is absolutely our main goal and focus. Every single one of our employees is empowered to make sure that people leave happy, no matter what it is. They don't have to say, "Well, let me see, let me get my manager for you." They know what to do and they can do it. So we make sure that it's not like a cookie cutter operation or a big corporate deal. We try to really personalize it, and we find that also it creates a feeling of responsibility and a sense of belonging to something, to all of our team members, that we trust them. We respect their judgment.
Right. And then, hopefully you're positively impacting that magical KPI of frequency, right? The more
Oh
often
boy.
we can get them to come back in, right? That's the secret. What is the secret number, right? I've been talking about that a lot. Like, is it 4 visits? Is it 5 visits? What's
Yeah.
that number where we finally know that we've got them as sort of a long-term customer? That's a tough thing to chase and get right.
Well, you're right. And just one more thought on that is just that. I mean, we charge $12 for a sandwich, for our regular sandwich, bestseller. A sandwich for $12 is a hard proposition, but when you walk in and the environment, the atmosphere, the vibe is alive and there's enthusiasm and energy, people are happy to see you, the place is clean, all the light bulbs are in, that adds value to that customer experience. And that, I think, makes a huge difference. It results in somebody hopefully walking out shaking their head saying, "I made a good choice."
Right, right. And Kristen, for your group, for your clients as well as your restaurants, do you have any sort of performance-based structures in place that are helping sort of keep your operators ahead, keeping them on top of these sort of issues?
Yeah, so we've run a scorecard bonus program for years and years on both of our concepts that we operate. And so every month our managers get a certain amount of points for achieving key metrics. So food and labor drive obviously the biggest portion of our P&L and profitability. And so the most points are in those categories, and we have targets set for their stores. And then they can also earn points for things like speed of service, guest satisfaction, operational assessment scores and things like that. And it all comes down to a composite score. And then we apply that score to a pool of money. And it's not like, oh, manager A gets more, so manager B gets less. They all have the same pool. What I get doesn't take from someone else. And then we actually
Okay.
pay those out every month. And because of that, our GM retention on our Taco John's concept is around 10 years. Our average GM has been with us. And Slim Chickens, we've only been in that brand for about 3 years, but we, knock on wood, have had all of our same managers since the beginning.
That's huge. That's amazing.
Wow.
That says a lot about a group. That's fantastic. Well, let's talk about the big one, cost controls, right? We can be doing everything right within our four walls, but if we're not, operating to a profit margin, it's all for nothing. I'm going to start with you again, Wayne. How are you using data to sort of identify cost saving opportunities? Obviously, we all need technology these days to help control these issues.
Yeah. We track, there's a couple of the key KPIs that we share on a daily basis, and we share broadly across the restaurants. So there's a little healthy competition there as well. So we use peer pressure, but we track in addition to, sales, same store sales, labor as a percent, and then labor, the productivity measure we use is customers per labor hour,
Okay.
which is more telling because it's fair across the system. But we track our prices on a weekly basis and share them and analyze them and convert that into a market basket to see what the various prices are doing to our food cost. We've over the last year or so, really came on strong with our 365's actual versus theoretical product. So we've been pulled kicking and screaming into the 1990s, I guess, with that. But it's a very valuable tool because it directs you as to exactly where the issue is, not just that you have a problem. And that just it was amazing. And one of the things that we've done is also been more thoughtful as to the LTOs that we feature, and we pick them and craft them basically for is this time of year when we need help with food cost control or labor control, and we really make sure that we're matching it up with the needs of the company. And then beyond that, again, just more focus on the analytics as we're growing as a company. That's more and more important, and we try to do it in a way that's very personal though and not cold and aside, but it's something that has really helped all of our managers and our shift managers be more aware of a P&L, how to read a P&L, how what they can do every day to affect those costs, be it utilities, insurance, cleaning supplies, whatever it might be, in addition to the bigger controllables.
And Kristen, what about for your group, your clients, and then also your restaurants? Are they different sets of data, or do you find all the data is the same across the board for how you're controlling cost savings?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same across the board. We focus primarily on fast casual and QSR. And so, like Wayne said, we review a lot of AVTs, actual versus theoretical as well. Lately, I've been having problems with the chicken in one of our stores where we can see it in the numbers that something is going on. They either have really bad portion control or someone's stealing from us. And so we've been watching the data and put some really tight controls around the chicken. We have our store managers doing nightly hot counts of all the protein, as well as checking things in the morning to see if we can figure out where the product is leaving. And that thankfully has brought the number down somewhat. What the root cause was, not 100% sure yet, but watching the data very closely on things like that and using it to drive how we interact with our stores and what we ask them to do.
Portion control, I feel like is so often overlooked. It's like the last place we look, and I feel like it really should be the first place we look. Bill, I know you've been a big proponent of the actual versus theoretical reporting. I'm curious if you have a specific example where sort of better data visibility helped you make a better, smarter decision.
Well, I think the biggest thing in actual versus theoretical is really getting our operational teams involved in that data and letting them look at that and letting them decipher that for themselves. I think the ability to kind of pick and choose what they want, what they need to look at by the individual stores that they're involved with helps them get a better understanding of what's there and ask the right question. I think sometimes when you get too much data, you get data drunk and you don't really know what to look at anymore. But I think if you can start to zero in on how different people look at data, I think that helps us see it in a little bit different way, and it changes the story a little bit of what does that look like. And I think then part of it is, kind of what everybody was talking about is you have to see a visual of what's going on as well to align with the data to make sure that you're validating what you're actually seeing in the numbers.
Right. And let's talk about that, Kristen. You've got a very specific way you like to visualize your sort of attack, the way you attack your COGS controls and your expense controls with your clients, as well as within your restaurants. Can you walk us through this a little bit?
Yeah, so thanks to Mark and Denise for letting me share this. So this is one of the digital tools that we use in our own restaurant. And we also have available in our little shop at restaurant-toolbox.com. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But we've used a scorecard for a while now, but we recently converted it to this format into what we call our state of the business spreadsheet to track a variety of key metrics, but also give our managers visibility into how they're performing in an easily digestible format. So it looks like a lot of numbers, but like Bill said, you can quickly become data drunk. And so there are just the red and the green bars. So they can quickly look and say, how many reds do I have? How many greens do I have? And are all my reds concentrated in a certain area? So in this sample set of data, labor efficiency, kind of in the middle block there, they kind of were red on everything. So they did not run their labor efficiency very well this past week. And they came short of their goal on sales per labor hour and guests per labor hour. And so we have these key metrics, and our director of operations puts this together for our restaurants. And then when he meets with our general managers each week, they go over this state of the business thing. They look at the metrics, again, focusing on, hey, where did we fall short of the mark last week? How can we dial that in? And what's going to be our top 3 focus for the next week? Because we can kill ourselves with 15 goals, but we'll never achieve them. And so we like to just focus it in. What's the top 3 things you're going to focus on next week? So with this manager, for instance, they're probably going to say, well, we had some overtime, I overscheduled, and we didn't get some people sent home. So we're going to just try to bring the overtime down by a few hours so that we're meeting our goal. We're going to try to meet our efficiency metrics and see what we can do there. And so it's been a helpful tool just to have the colored scorecards, and like I said, makes it easily digestible for people. So if anyone wants to snag this spreadsheet, again, you can grab it at restaurant-toolbox.com for yourself and use the code R365 and get a discount. But it's been really helpful for our business, and something, like I said, we've used scorecards for a long time. The colors help a lot.
No, this looks great. And I immediately see this and I just want to automate all of it for you. So let's figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk a little bit about multi-location management, which is something all 3 of you are very, very familiar with. Bill, I'm going to start with you because you've got a lot of locations. How do you sort of keep visibility and control across all your stores at sort of a high level?
Yeah, so our data is key. Dashboards are key, and being able to aggregate that data up so that we're looking at the same type of information across all the restaurants. 95% of our locations are franchised, and so having that communication with our franchise business coaches with each of the franchisees that are out there becomes really important. And having that data. We use scorecards as well and KPIs to be able to kind of rank stores and create some competition in where they're at. The stores that are at the top of the box are always, a little bit more proud than the ones that are fighting to get up to the top, right? And so, I think that helps drive, but that helps us kind of see we quartile our stores a lot. So we're looking at the stores that are in the quartiles and trying to give focus to the different categories. The larger groups versus the smaller groups are very different in our setting, and they provide different support. And
Right.
So we try to focus in on what's the need and who in our group that assist our franchisees can help that group with what they need, right? And so it's trying to right size it and not just try to push in a direction that everyone's the same, because they're not.
It's a great point. And we never think about that in terms of our client base, like your segmentation within our segmentation, right? We see Freddy's as a cube, but within Freddy's, there are different kinds of Freddy's depending on the size of the store, the region, the state. That it makes a lot of sense. Kristen, for you and your Taco John's, and I assume now you're applying the same logic to your Slim Chickens, but sort of what are the systems or habits that have helped you manage your consistency across your stores?
Yeah, when I think about that, I think about how do we get everyone rowing in the same direction, right? And systems, like you said, in the question are key. And so we've really tried to standardize things where we can. So we have a standard interview question form that we put all of our candidates through at every single restaurant. Everyone uses the same set of questions, which are designed to identify how well a team member aligns with our core values primarily.
Mm.
And then the procedures that we follow for food costs are the same everywhere. The labor tracking form where we manage our labor, they have to enter in their hours used for the day before, and it tells them, what their budget is and things like that. They are all using the same one. And then through that bonus plan that I mentioned previously, they're all scored on the same metrics. Now, the individual goals for a given restaurant might be a little bit different. Some might need more staff or fewer staff or different things like that, but they're all focused on the same thing. And so we really try to standardize things wherever we can, standardize 80% and then customize the 20% for a low volume restaurant or a high volume restaurant or whatever the case may be.
And so you're at 4 Slim Chickens now. Is that sort of, are you iterating on this as you grow? At 23 Taco John's, you're dialed in at that point, but at Slim, like there's some iteration, I would imagine that happens.
Yeah, yep. We've gotten better over time. There's things, that we said, okay, here's, from Taco John's what we can use as we've gone into the Slim Chickens brand. We can use the same concepts, but it has to be different. Like I have a different manning guide or labor matrix in the Slim Chickens than I do in the Taco John's.
Right.
But then we've also been surprised, and a lot of it has gone the other direction. There's things that we've learned from operators in the Slim Chickens brand and just different ways of thinking about things that we've been able to take back to Taco John's and improve things there.
I love that. That's awesome. And Wayne, it sounds like your stores are all very unique. I feel like I'm going to get a great experience in Eddie's Snarfs, but it's going to be a little different depending on the neighborhood, depending on where the store is located. How do you sort of balance that, empowerment of your GMs to sort of create a culture at the store level, but also having brand wide consistency?
And that's a good call. Each restaurant has its own character, its own
Right.
personality, and we do want it to be reflective of the GM and their style. But there has to be the snarfiness throughout. That our customers eat at a lot of different locations, and we want them to have the same exact experience. So it is as simple as having, if it's a simple thing, but crystal clear standards. And we really emphasize the why these are our standards and how you achieve these standards. And then we celebrate really good individual approaches. We celebrate best practices. So we're constantly illustrating where the latitude is, and you can utilize your personality, and where the line is, so that we're constantly calibrating on exactly the kind of experience we want our guests to get. And again, we celebrate the successes, and we address in a quiet manner, when somebody goes outside the line there.
And Bill, for people on the call that might just be starting to scale their QSR practice, you've obviously seen remarkable growth. What's sort of been the biggest challenge of scaling for you and for Freddy's, and how'd you solve for it?
Well, I think the first piece is that as you scale, you have to keep changing as a franchisor. And what I mean by that is, to a little bit what Wayne just said, is that your hammer has to get sometimes bigger, because you want people to be creative and you want them to have flexibility in their business. But at points as you get bigger, you have to try to compress some of that, because you have to have more consistency, so that whenever a guest goes into your restaurant, it looks the same everywhere they go. And the challenge is trying to balance that with what's the right thing to do versus, that hammer can never get too big. You always have to be a good partner. And we have to keep reminding ourselves that, there's no Freddy's without our franchisees. And so it's that constant just working with the groups, working with franchisees to keep an open mind of listening to feedback, and being able to, we've implemented a lot of things that our franchisees have brought to us. So I think that the second piece of it is just having that open mind to say, okay, we don't know everything. We're seeing things that are different across the country in different states. And how do we react to that, and how do we bring that under the umbrella? But building that platform underneath the umbrella, it gets hard. But at the end of the day, it's how do we do this for, as many people as we can, because it feels good, and it's what our guests are looking for.
That feedback loop is so critical. Chris, I'm going to ask for a bit of a shameless plug here, but how has Restaurant 365 made your multi-location management easier or sort of more transparent?
Yeah, we love the daily sales and flash reports that you can set up to come to your email every day. So that's something that we look at for our businesses, something that we set all of our clients up on right away. As soon as we have the POS connected into our 365, we're getting those reports sent out, helps us easily see results at each location. I also particularly love the P&L location side by side reports. You can't get that kind of reporting if you're using a tool like QuickBooks Online. That's why in our accounting firm, we put any clients with more than one unit onto our 365, particularly if they have multiple legal entities. And I also use that report a ton just with my accounting staff to review their work, as well as our director of operations to say, hey, here's our locations side by side. Here's how they're performing, and say, oh, the utilities at location number 3, they have a lower sales volume than location number 1, but their dollars are higher. Like, what's wrong? Well, then I go in the restaurant and they're turning on all the fryers and all the grills 2 hours before we open. And I'm like, well, that's why and so it really helps
Yeah.
us kind of instill that competition that Wayne and Bill have talked about, and push our restaurants to make some changes when they have those areas that maybe need to be dialed in a little bit.
Love it. And Bill was talking a little bit about intercompany benchmarking and some healthy competition. Wayne, is that something you're finding to be a good motivator for Snarfs when the stores are seeing how the other stores are performing against each other?
Oh, absolutely. We are a competitive bunch. Whenever we play volleyball, kickball, golf, whatever it is outside, we bring that to work, and we purposely match it up. We purposely share those stats, and we really put some thought into making sure that everybody has something they can excel at. Everybody's not going to be in the top five sales, but they might be in the top five sales growth or the top five efficiencies or improvement in their P&L or turnover. We track turnover every period, and it's something that it's a benchmark for us of our efforts and focus on retaining talent and recruiting people that fit into our culture working. And we're running for the year to date about 18% annual run rate of turnover, which is phenomenal. And I'm
Yeah.
knock on wood here, because everything else becomes so much easier. It really does come together there. So competition is amazing, and it also creates a sense of belonging. No matter
Yeah.
if you're a 15-year veteran of Snarfs or a 5 month veteran that can come in and get some recognition and be appreciated in such a way. I'll have the founder. There is a Snarf. It's a nickname of Jimmy Seidel. I'll have him call somebody that just had a great shift and just say, "Look, I watch this guy run his restaurant, and he's a pro." And
Love it.
just that kind of simple, free recognition sometimes is
Yeah.
amazing. Then other people want that, and we have a newsletter with pictures of. We don't call it Employee of the Month, but a featured person. And then other people say, "Hey, I've got somebody that's better than that," and just wanting to feature their own team members. So there's all kinds of competition as long as it's healthy, and it's not undercutting
Yeah.
somebody else. And that our culture allows that, and I think really truly benefit from that.
I think, Wayne, you get the award for best segue today because that takes us right into people, culture, and training. Well done. Which I think this is, for me, still probably the most important part of our business, right? Getting the right people, getting the right culture in place. Bill, for you, what's something you've maybe done recently to make life easier for your teams?
Well, I think I've gotten out of their way. And what I mean by that is that, for a long time, since the beginning of our implementation with Restaurant 365, the finance team and accounting team have been the one that kind of pushed to ops what we want to try to accomplish inside of Restaurant 365. And we've turned it over to our operations team. So we have a vice president, regional vice president, who is leading what our ops teams are going to do next in Restaurant 365. And that has made it better for them because now they're doing things that are impactful to them and not just impactful to me and what I'm trying to accomplish. And so I think being able to turn that over and let our operations team lead those pieces has made their life easier. I still am always talking about food costs, and so they'll never get away from that. But um, I think having them in control of where they want to go with it is going to be great because I think it's going to add to even more pieces of the puzzle as they kind of explore that journey even deeper.
And Kristen, what are you using any sort of technology to help your new hires, new managers, or your location sort of ramp up quicker?
Yeah, so we opened a new Slim Chickens earlier this year and have to hire 75 to 80 people in the span of just a couple of weeks. So we have to be able to scale. And so we've gone cloud everything. We use cloud onboarding, cloud-based applicant tracking system. All of our training is digital, and we just really work to minimize the amount of paper. Nobody has time to be scanning in paper and sending it in for someone else to file. We're currently in the process of converting things like our disciplinary process to electronic in our HR system. And we push the software to the max to try to use all of the facets that we can just to keep our managers able to be on, in the kitchen, out in front of house, working with their teams, not sitting back in the office dealing with
Yeah.
paperwork.
And that definitely that helps you scale much faster, I'm sure, now that you've got all those systems and solutions in place. Wayne, clearly culture is a huge role at Snarfs. How is that sort of sustaining that operational excellence you've been talking about? It still sounds like a bit of a fine line, but they seem to work in tandem together.
Well, it does, and again, it's about establishing what our expectations and standards are, and then letting people free, like Bill says, you kind of get out of their way to a degree, but we tie everything to the customer experience. Our internal slogan is every sandwich, every customer, every time, and we really just focus on giving them what they need and how to look at that customer experience to really inject themselves into it. I think it works. It works really well. And then to support that retention, we just go out of our way to, simple things, post the schedule 2 to 3 weeks in advance. Um, uh, not always try to get people to pick up extra shifts. We respect their availability. So we make it an easy place to work. But free food, we encourage them to be themselves, to wear clothes that they're comfortable in as long as they're appropriate and clean. We even provide a janitorial service in the evening. It's a little bit of a cost, but it's astonishing the value that provides to those
Hmm.
employees to know that they're not going to have to stay an hour and a half afterwards scrubbing floors and cleaning restrooms. Things that sometimes people say, I don't even do that at home. I don't want to do that here at a restaurant, but it really creates an atmosphere where people can live their life and they can enjoy where they work and not always dread the unknown. What's going to go wrong today? How are they going to be hitting on me today?
So Wayne is saying there is work-life balance in the restaurant industry. It is a real
Oh yeah.
thing. It is attainable. I love it. So when you're going to try and attract or find new talent, obviously labor markets are tight. Any creative ways you found to sort of bring people into the fold, bring people into your culture?
Well, I'll jump in first. With low turnover, we can be picky, and most of our restaurants have kind of a waiting list basically, and we want people to kind of earn the right to work at Snarf. So we do provide bounties. If somebody brings in a friend or somebody that wants to work for us, it's $100. If we hire them, and we make it simple, if we hire them, it's our choice now. We'll pay you 100
Right.
$300 if it's a manager. Our internal promote rate is almost 70%. And that is something I think that also helps impact that retaining talent and recruiting, because when people see that there's a career path, if that's what they want, if that's what they're interested in, it's
Hmm.
pretty amazing to see people that were sandwich makers and all of a sudden they're a multi-unit manager or taking on even more than that with managing our tech stack or moving into facilities or into marketing, that it's a restaurant company. It's not just making sandwiches, it's an entire enterprise. There's all kinds of opportunities for people that have proven themselves. And side by side, I'd rather go with somebody that's proven themselves,
Oh, yeah.
how they respond to stress, how smart they are, their sense of humor, their work ethic. We can teach them the other things, but hiring from outside of your organization, it's difficult to know that they're really going to be a good fit cultural and somebody you can plan on with the fast growth that we're experiencing right now.
Yeah, in the past, I've been critical of our industry of not doing a good job of promoting us as a viable career path, right? That there are growth opportunities in this industry. It's not just an entry level first job out of school. Like if you work hard, there is a path forward. And I think the more we can show that within our organizations, I think the stronger the industry is going to be. Well, let's talk about the guest experience, because obviously if we've got the people right, hopefully we're getting the guest experience right. Kristen, how have guest expectations sort of changed over the past few years for your group?
Yeah, so I think, we've all had higher input costs and we've been forced to pass those along in the form of higher prices in a lot of situations. And so guests expect more. They have fewer dollars to spend. And when they spend the dollars, they want to make sure that they're getting their money's worth in terms of quality product and quality service. We recently tried AI in the drive-through to help our team out at a location where we struggle a bit with staffing. We can hire people, but then they don't like to show up. And so we thought, well, we'll just give the AI in the drive-through a try. Our franchisor was looking for people to test it, but we found that our guests didn't like it. And surprisingly, neither did our team. And
Mm-hmm.
so the guests still very much want the human interaction. And I don't know, the team was like, yeah, it saves us some time, but I would rather just talk to the guests myself too. And so that was kind of an interesting learning. And then even where we have kiosks in our front of house inside the building, for that reason, we also keep a person up front to be a coach and help the guests
Mm-hmm.
out, just because people do still want that hospitality and want that experience. They're paying more, they want to interact with a human, and so we want to make sure that we are serving them in that way.
Yeah, I think that brings up a great point too. Like, yes, the guests are wanting to interact with us, but I think a lot of people get into this industry because they want to interact with the guest as well. And if we start to remove that, I think it makes the positioning a little less attractive. People get into hospitality because they want to be with other people, right? And if we remove some of that, I think we lose some of that magic. So, Bill, for a group like Freddy's, obviously, speed is important, quality is important, personalization. Like, how do you balance all of that?
We use technology. So, we're evolving into that. I think the process of smashing a burger isn't as easy as it sounds. It's not just smashing it, but there's a form to it. And so we've been able to develop a device that helps us smash uh, a burger to our spec that helps our cooks do it consistently every time and doesn't wear out their forearms so they look like Popeye. We're using tech in our KDS system where it's not showing words anymore, but it's showing pictures. So that our team can jump right into the line and be able to build the burger based on the different customizations. So you don't have to learn a burger build anymore. You learn what the guest wants by looking at it on a screen and being able to work quickly that way. And so it helps them have a little bit more fun and less stress as the teams are working. And that seems to improve morale overall. And you get a better result. And I think that kind of helps across. And I think that's what Wayne's been talking about too, is that if you can have fun at what you're doing, it takes the level of the restaurant up a bit that guests can really feel and adds to the
Yeah,
value of the experience.
it's infectious for sure. And I think you make a great point. Like, we're all chasing, what the next great AI solution might be for restaurants. But at the end of the day, I think for us, it's about automating some of these processes and making them consistent, not about removing interactions, right? I really think that's where we need to be focused.
Absolutely, because I think you lose some of the hospitality as you
Yeah,
eliminate the interaction, and it's hard to have hospitality with a machine.
right. Kristen, for you were talking a little about the AI ordering piece, but digital ordering, delivery trends, how have those shifted how you guys are approaching your operations?
Yeah, so we have a separate screen in most of our restaurants for online and third-party orders. One of the things that we bonus our managers on, like I talked about on our bonus scorecard, is speed of service. But sometimes those online and third-party orders can be so large and take a longer time to fulfill. And we don't want that to penalize them. And so we have a separate screen where those third-party orders come in. And then the other reason they sometimes sit there too is we watch very closely where the driver is at. Like we have technology that will tell us how far away they are, and we will wait to make the food because otherwise the food sits there too
Hmm.
long. And then by the time they drive it back to the guest, it's cold. And so we really watch where the drivers are at before we make the food. The other thing that we've gone to is we put all of our shelving for third-party orders behind the front counter whenever possible, because we found that oftentimes the drivers would forget the drinks, or if there's multiple bags, they would get one but not the other bag. And then with that, DoorDash has a new program called Smart Scale, which is great. So if you're part of a franchise chain, they would have to set it up. But what happens is the franchise system works with DoorDash to get a weight for every single item. And so then when the order comes through, before you give it to the driver, you weigh it on this scale and it can tell you if you're missing anything because it knows the weight of every single item in the order. And so that has helped a lot just in terms of order accuracy, making sure the guests are getting everything that they ordered and are supposed to get. And it's been a real net positive for us. So
And helps with portion control. I love
that's right.
that.
That too, yes. But
Right? Yeah,
missing
it's got,
missing items
gotta.
in particular, missing items, missing or incorrect items is the number one cause of errors on delivery orders, at least for us. And so anything that we can do to prevent that, putting the stuff behind the counter, making sure they get all the bags and that all the bags have all the stuff in them. So
I also love that you're tracking time of delivery arrival versus them picking up because for anybody out, you're all doing third party delivery. I know everybody is. I challenge you to place an order at your restaurant, put it in a bag, put it in the back seat of your car, drive around for 30 minutes, and then eat it because it's a much different experience than what your guest is getting within your four walls, and that's something you really need to be paying attention to because that'll kill your brand, right? Um, Wayne, you know, we've talked about this guest experience at Snarfs, and I'm curious, finding the right people is one thing, but then how do you train them into that? How does your training program help deliver on that unique guest experience?
Well, we focus in the training materials. We use just our words, but that doesn't work as well as a personal example. We
Right.
demonstrate it, and that's something we expect of our managers and our trainers is to be that personal example without a doubt and show it to people, demonstrate it, and then have them do it. Because we oftentimes hire people that are terrific in a lot of ways, but they're a little shy and they talk quietly. And it is amazing. Our new restaurant opening process that we compress into 5 days is astonishing. It is astonishing to see people come out of their shells and really start to become themselves. And that also, I think, is such a cool thing because in restaurants, particularly like ours, I think there's a lot of first-time employees
Yeah.
that that are just finding themselves as a person as well. And I think seeing that personal example and seeing how that's recognized and appreciated and rewarded is really a big motivator in that direction. And then when people do the right things, we recognize it and we let them know. Anything from just an attaboy, a pat on the back. Oftentimes it'll be a pass to a competitor. A lot of competitors in the area will share gift cards and free meal
Smart.
passes. So we'll lay something on somebody to make sure that we're seeing it and it's important to us.
You get a little free R&D as well. That's
Yeah,
perfect.
absolutely. We celebrate it when they're doing the right things.
So let's end and talk about a little bit about the future. We saw at the beginning we're going to be a $1.5 trillion industry by the end of the year, which is something I'm not sure I ever thought I'd see. But Bill, I'll start with you. What does your growth look like for Freddy's the next 12 to 18 months?
Well, in the next 12 to 18 months, we're scheduled to open 60 to 70 restaurants. So we're going to help that trillion.
Wow.
It's
You
going to be
really
pretty good.
are. That's huge. Wayne, what about for Snars?
Boy, well, I got to get over Bill because I'm already gonna steal data drunk. I'm tired of saying analysis paralysis by analysis.
Yes.
Let me talk numbers and percentages. Maybe that'll make me feel better. So
Okay.
we're gonna try the impossible here. We're gonna open 4 restaurants in 3 weeks between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Three in Dallas, a brand new market, and one additional here in Colorado. And then next year, we're gonna have four each quarter for a total of 16 that about 10 to 12 are already under lease So it's not blue sky. It's something that's happening. It's a plan that we've had. We've had a consolidated unit growth of 28% over the last 4 years. So we're just continuing to do that. It provides so many opportunities for people within the organization and adds that sense of being on a winning team. You know,
Hmm.
everybody knows, and we talk about our competitors and how they're struggling oftentimes, and the competitors they're doing as well or better than us. But the feeling of being part of a winning team and contributing is very powerful.
And Kristen, you've obviously scaled your Taco John's. You're starting to scale your Slim Chickens. What advice would you give to other operators to looking to scale sustainably?
Systems. Make sure you have your systems built out before you start growing because otherwise you just duplicate your problems in a new location. And obviously you're never going to be 100% before you start, but get to 80 or 90% of the way there before you replicate them. Because again, otherwise you just are replicating the same issues. And so anything you can iron out before you grow, you should try to do that.
Yeah, I talk about this a lot. Future proof your tech stack because even if you don't think you're going to get to 70 units, even if you don't think you're going to get to 10, like the decisions you make today definitely are going to they drive that process. If you get to 10 and you haven't done what you're talking about, it's a very messy piece to unravel and rebuild.
And
I,
super
I agree
painful.
100% with that. We did
Yeah.
that in 22 where we rebuilt everything so that we could get to where we are today. So it takes a long time. And I had brown hair when that started.
Well, I want to wrap up just quickly with some rapid fire questions for everybody, just some hot takes. Wayne, I'm going to start with you. What is the one operational habit that you cannot live without?
Oh boy, only one.
Only one.
I would say simple. Time in the restaurants. Look at everything. Look at the food on the line, in the walk-in. Talk about it. Point at it. Taste it. Really make sure that our team knows what's important to us and what makes our money. And along the same lines, say hello to every single person. Ask them how
Mhm.
they're doing, and don't leave without saying goodbye to every person.
Love it. And Bill, what's your favorite KPI to check in the morning?
Well, I have three.
Okay.
It's comp sales, it's traffic from the CFO side of that, and then the other one is voice of guest. I think hearing what our guests are saying to us and being able to react to that by store, by region, it really helps us do better.
And Kristen, final for you. What's one restaurant trend you secretly hope goes away?
Unattended kiosks in the dining room. Hey, there are certain brands that don't have anyone out front, which is why I said I'm adamant with my people that they have somebody out there, even
Mhm.
when we do have a kiosk, because I hate having to shout back into the kitchen at a restaurant chain that will not be named when they forget something in my kid's order, which, sometimes happens and it's super awkward. I'm like, hello, anyone home? So
Love it.
that's what
Well,
I secretly hope goes away.
I'm 100% in agreement with you. Well, this has been an awesome conversation. I really appreciate the three of you taking your time to join us and everybody that was able to join the call today. Before we wrap up, I know we've got a quick poll that Denise wants everybody to take, so I will let her do that.
Yes, we do. So I'll go ahead and launch that right now. And then, yeah, so take a moment to submit your response. And if you're a current customer or you have any additional questions, feel free to use this QR code to connect directly with any member on our team. So I'll leave this up here for just a little bit longer. All right.
And then for anybody that's going to be in the New York area on December 3rd, we are doing our final restaurant transformation tour of the year. I know Kristen's going to be there. We're going to have a bunch of users like her on some panels. We're going to have some keynotes. We're going to have some breakout sessions. So if you've never been to one of these events, it's a great place to meet Restaurant 365 folks like me, but also a better place to meet other Restaurant 365 users so we can grow that community. Wayne, Bill, Kristen, again, thank you so much for joining us. This was a great conversation, and I hope you have a profitable Thursday.
Thanks for having us on.
Thank you.
Thanks. Take care, guys.
Thanks, everybody.